Hello, my name is Zachary Williams. You know me. I've been in your class. Today I'm here to tell you about my action research. My action research revolves around this one problem that I've found so quite often in my class. This idea that students are unmotivated. How should I get my students motivated? That was the essential question. Along with this idea of motivation, I also wanted to make sure I looked at how students felt when the teacher was working. Was the teacher working with them? Was the teacher there to help and facilitate them? How exactly did the students see the teacher within the classroom? The last thing I was looking at is this idea of allowing students to work hands-on with the material, to have them lead the classroom. So this idea of student-centered instruction. These three main things helped me to come up with this overarching question. My action research question was this: how can I structure student-centered activities to benefit students of all levels, such as different strengths and interests, while making sure students maintain academic focus and relevance towards the lesson? That was my essential question. Let me give you a demonstration. A lot of times in class, I found that students were not necessarily motivated during different parts of class. Era of great expansion in the U.S. Can someone please remind me, why would settlers want to move west? We have a lot of people that are moving west. There are possibly many opportunities. What could some of those opportunities be? Why would these early settlers want to leave the comfort of the East Coast and east of the Mississippi and venture west? Can anyone raise their hand and tell me why someone might want to venture west? Come on guys, this is worse than my last mod. I see you're having trouble. How can I help you with this problem? So I see you have a lot of good things here already, but let me know how you can keep talking. I see you wrote down about the westward trails. You talked about the Oregon Trail. What exactly was the Oregon Trail used for? Feels like I'm talking to a brick wall right now. Please, come on, help me. To confront my question and really implement some intervention, I decided I would first get a survey from my students. I asked them how they would judge themselves when it came to students, how they identified themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, and also what kind of group instruction they would prefer. Overwhelmingly, the students all preferred group instruction, which went perfectly with my intervention. My intervention was going to be through the use of small group activities. These small group activities would be student-centered. It'd be student-propelled. There would be many different types of activities, such as jigsaw. That's a great question. Yeah, let's check that out. You raise a very interesting point. I never noticed that before. Great job. I don't understand the question of this. What was that? Oh, Sacagawea? Here, let's help us. Can anyone help? Paul Revere, I see your hand went up. You want to try to assist Sacagawea with this one? Yeah, it means the westward expansion was really neat. Great one. No way. Good job. There would also be a debate that would take place later in the week. That's an excellent argument, Paul Revere. Sacagawea, you have a response? Go on. Oh, wow. Paul Revere, your team, did you think about that? Go ahead, Abe Lincoln. This is a really great debate. Good job, guys. I like where this is going. Overall, it was going to be the students' voices who are heard and propelled the discussion through those small groups. To check the significance of my intervention, the way I collected data was through three different ways. I had students complete surveys. I also compiled test results before and after the intervention. Same with my surveys, were before and after. And the last thing I did was I kept an observation field journal throughout the 3-week period when my intervention was going on. Here we see the test results. The test scores in blue were before the intervention. The test scores in red were after the intervention. What we can see right away is that the test scores in blue, the first test, are definitely lower than the second one. But there are several reasons for this. Possibly, it deals with the different type of curriculum as well as how long the units were. My intervention only lasted for 3 weeks, while the other one lasted for 4 weeks. That's why the test scores for the first test may be lower than the second. Also, the first test dealt with the Constitution, while my intervention dealt with the first several administrations. These two subject matters are quite different, which could also correlate for why these test scores are so different. However, I think it is important to note that there is quite a difference, and we do see that students' performances do increase a little bit. The only exception was student B, who I focused on. His test score for the second test dipped down slightly. Besides the test results, the surveys came back rather interesting. For the most part, it seems like students saw helpfulness from the teacher relatively high. They scored it on a Likert scale of 1 to 5, mostly 4s and 5s. Afterwards, after the intervention, it stayed relatively the same. Same also with the engagement level. The engagement level, most students put at either a 3, 4, or 5, and afterwards, it was at a 3, 4, or 5 for most students. So we see no huge change in that. So that's always interesting to note. For the field observation notes, for the most part, I focused on 4 different students. I also focused on their test results. For the most part, their behavior throughout the whole thing seems like it didn't change. They were focused sometimes, other times they were not focused. I didn't see really any huge change in motivation, whether it was going from no motivation whatsoever to like off the rooftop motivation. My 4 students came in very different ranges. Student A had some capabilities, yet he didn't produce at all. Student B, he had a lot of capabilities and he also produced a lot. He was high achieving. Student C, she had some capabilities, yet she was reluctant. She let other things get in her way. Student D, she definitely had capabilities, yet she would find other things to do, and she would even try to get other people off task. These were the 4 students that I focused on throughout my intervention, and that's where my field notes come from. Throughout the field notes, my observations, I noticed that they did not have any big variation when it came to their motivation. It seems like the small group activities, some days they were on point, other days they weren't. What I will say is that certain students, such as student A, he definitely improved when he had the mastery of the material, which will lead me to my big takeaways in a second. My findings and results are very complex, especially because of the observations. What I can do, though, is determine 3 big takeaways from this. My 3 big takeaways from compiling all the survey responses, the observation journal, as well as the test results is the first takeaway: students can gain ownership over the material. They do this when they have confidence. When they work in small groups that are student-centered, they are able to come together, really look at the material, and make it their own. Produce it in ways that they feel comfortable. And this was definitely seen during the debate. My second takeaway is this: accountability for the work is there. When you're in small groups, the teacher has much more ease when it comes to looking to make sure that they are getting their work done. Also, when they feel that they have this ownership, of course they're going to complete their work. So accountability definitely goes up. My third takeaway is this: when students are working in small groups, they have easier access to the teacher for help. This definitely increases their participation as well as just their comfort level, which greatly influences their other 2 takeaways. So all 3 of these I definitely noticed throughout my findings and then going into my results. Now that my intervention has come to a close, I still have a couple remaining questions. Some questions I started to think about during the intervention as well as before that weren't actually answered. The first question is this: how to get students engaged right when they enter through the door? How can I hook them immediately to get them entranced into the lesson? That's one of my still remaining questions. Another question I have is this: how can I structure my activities so that students who have different interests or are from different quote-unquote cliques can work together. This idea of even though we have different interests and we're relying on those to complete an activity, how can I get it so that their interests mesh together and they work together well? That's my second question. At this time, I would like to thank you for watching my presentation, listening to my action research, as well as the intervention. Also at this time, I would like to thank the people who helped me a lot. Sacagawea, I couldn't have done it without you, this presentation, as well as Mr. Paul Revere. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. I hope all the other presentations go swimmingly. I hope I was able to entertain you and you're able to really think about my intervention and my action research question. Have a great day, guys.